So beginning with this session, we start talking about the union operators in MS Access. And as we have discussed before, a union operator is simply used to append two tables to one another. So if I have so one table and I want to append its all of the rows to another table, then I'm going to use a union operator instead of a join operation, which is actually putting one table beside the another. Now there are certain rules and regulations that come into play while performing up unions in SQL, and they form up an essential part of this video discussion. But before we move forward, let's look at the typical union syntax in SQL. And the typical form of a union operation is that the set operator, which is the union operator in this, it is used to perform up a union between the results of two input queries. Now, when I say input queries, I'm not referring to the tables. I'm actually referring to the query results that would be produced from one table, and it will be used to union it with the result of the queries performed on another table. And if the individual requires by, it can also order by the whole of the results by using a certain condition. So let's take a look at an example for this. So right now I have this the data sets prepared over here. So as usual, I have the biodata data set, which contains 7 variables, beginning with identification, first name, and the other basic individual identification matrix. Then I have another table which has exactly the same sort of variables that were in the biodata data set. And when I say same, they are exactly same in the form of their data type. They're same in the form of their names. And these two conditions are very essential while performing up unions, as we are going to explore in this video. So before looking at the syntax, since we are talking about rules, let's take a look at the rules which are required for performing up unions. So the two queries involved in a set operator must produce results with the same number of columns, and the corresponding columns must have compatible data types. And the names of the columns in the result of a set operator are determined by the first query. So therefore, if you need to assign aliases to result columns, you should assign those in the first query. So we get to these all three one by one. The first one is that when you're going to use a per set operator, that is a union operator, the two queries must produce result with the same number of columns. So say I move on to SQL and type in SQL query, whereby I am trying to perform up a union between the results of the first query with the results from a second query. So I need to have in my select clauses the variables, the same number of variables in both of the select clauses. So I cannot put like say, so if I assign biodata as A and example as B, so I cannot have A dot nationality comma A dot years with us, and in this case only B dot nationality. So this would produce up an error because right now it violates the first rule of performing up a union, which is that the number of variables produced from the first query must be equal to the number of variables that are going to be returned from the second query. So let's try running this statement and see what happens. So it tells me that the number of columns in the two selected tables or queries of a union query do not match the number of columns. So this is the one problem that you need to take care of while performing up a union, and make sure that in the select clause you have the same number of variables for both the select clauses. The second thing in this is that the corresponding columns must have compatible data types. Now, throughout our discussion on MS Access and SQL, I have laid great stress on understanding of data types. And in union operator, the knowledge of those things stands paramount, because if you understand what are data types and when they are and when and how they are used, probably you're going to end up with a very good query for union, and it's going to give you expected results. So in this case, when I say compatible data types, I mean that the data type that is lower in terms of data type precedence must be implicitly convertible to the higher data type. Now we know uh, that in Access, if we were going to go on any table and say go onto the fields tab and see the type of data types available to us, so we see that we have short text, long text, so we have numbers, date and time, and currency. But let's take an example for a short text and long text over here. So say you have the complete text of a PDF written into a cell in MS Access table, and obviously it is going to exceed 255 characters, and probably let's say it is 10,000 characters long. So if you try to append the two variables now, one of long text and another of short text, then they are not going to be say the long text is not going to be demoted to that of the short text. This is because SQL prohibits the truncation of data by moving the data from say a bigger domain data type to a smaller one. Instead, what would happen is that if a variable is of data type short text in one table and it is long text in another table, the short text variable's data type is going to be converted to a long text data type just to preserve the amount of data in the short text variable. So even more better example of looking at this is if we go into this more fields tab over here. This presents us with an exhaustive list of what could all the data types in MS Access be. And you can see that besides the short text and the long text, we have the rich text also. We have for date and time short dates, medium dates, long dates. So in all of the above cases, the short word represents the short length of the text that could be entered into the variable in SQL. So when you will have say a variable which is of the type short date in one table and it is a long date in another table, the short date variable is going to be promoted to the long date data type, and then it is only going to be appended. The last rule that we need to understand while before performing up a union is that the names of the variables that I am going to perform a union with should be exactly same. And if the names of the variables are not same, you're probably going to end up with a lot of confusion of the kind of data that is eventually going to be produced in your output. So just to give you an example for this, I have a query over here in which I have mistakenly typed in a dot first name, and I'm querying this from the biodata dataset, and I am performing a union between the query's results with b dot nationality. That is, I'm taking Excel sample as the table and extracting nationality out of it, and then I'm going to perform up a union. So when I'll run this query, you're going to see that a new variable has say a new variable for has been created which has the same name that was for the name of the variable in the first data set, and it has now a mix of nationalities and the first name of the individuals. So having a same name is probably a misnomer, but an accurate description would be that the meaning of the two variables should be similar in the user's eye. And if you are not going to take into consideration the name of the variables, probably you're going to end up with a lot of fuss. But another thing to be noted from the results of this query is that whenever you perform up a union, the variable's name that comes up in the eventual results is taken from the first data set that you used to create up a query in the first place. So in the next session, we are going to discuss at a bit more length about the union operator and how to perform up a right union and how to remove the duplicates or keep the duplicates in the union's results.